Welcome back to the Morning Beat. Now, you may know our next guest from her roles on Pose or maybe American Horror Story, 1984. Regardless of where you fell in love with her, the fact is simple. We're all in love with her, and she is so fierce. Please welcome to the program, Angelica Ross. Hey, girl.
Hey,
I love you all too. Thank you so much.
who's that little doggy?
This is Hammer, because as we know, a girl needs to carry a hammer with her at all times. So,
And Hammer looks very intimidating, honey. No one's messing with you and Hammer.
oh baby, when it's hammer time, watch out.
Well, there is a female Thor coming out soon. We learned about that last year. So a female will be carrying the Thor hammer. But you've been putting the hammer down all across Hollywood for a minute. But before we talk about your career, how did you get here? Tell us a little bit about Angelica. I hear that you were at one point in the military.
Yeah, I mean, I've been telling folks, because I'm working on some projects right now that are really helping me to sort of centralize my experience so that the folks who are looking for mentorship or, just that kind of connection and hope for their own journey, that I'm not constantly, sort of doing the one-on-one or saying the same things over and over. But it really does come down to the fact that I got here, I believe, on some spiritual woo-woo purpose stuff. You know what I mean? Literally, as a Buddhist, I feel like I knew that I would be able to handle this pathway of being trans and have the sort of ripple effect that I've had. So, but I had to go through my own experience of living on the streets, of being undervalued, of being underestimated, of being marginalized and criminalized just for being a trans person. If I'm walking down, I remember years ago, I was walking in down the street before I was famous in Los Angeles, and a cop was trying to stop me. And I just got really nervous because I think he was thinking that like I was a streetwalker type situation, and I was just going to the right age. You know what I'm saying? So, and I literally just had the nerve and audacity to ignore him, but that could have been a situation. So what I recognize is I had to use this vessel. I'm here because I am a Black trans woman, and all three of those things need progress. We need to move forward on issues dealing with women. We need to move forward on issues dealing with trans people. And we need to move forward with understanding that Black lives matter, that all Black lives matter.
Well, you're so resilient. And I want to go back quickly. I don't want you to repeat yourself, but there's something you talked about in an interview I saw where you were outed in Japan at 18 years old after leaving boot camp in the military, which is also what has made the Angelica Ross that had to have been terrifying. Can you just sort of re-talk about that story? Because it felt so inspired after hearing that, never knowing that before.
Yeah, I think that, again, people underestimate just how tough trans people are. And for me, I thought I was this wimpy kid that needed to be toughened up, that needed to have more discipline, that needed to be straightened out. So that's why I went to the military. I was hopeful that I would change sort of that look in my mom's eyes, you know what I mean? That she would look at me differently. But that almost cost me my life. And it was a situation where, being in the Navy in Japan, it was a very homophobic and at the same time homoerotic environment. It was nuts. So it was a situation where I felt like I was being sniffed out. I was lured into a room that I was under the impression that was a party that we were having. And then I ended up in an interrogation chair, and they were asking me all of these questions. And really, it was a guy who I felt like was dealing with his own sexuality, and he was drunk, and he just kept asking me over and over, like as if he had like kind of snapped, where say I'm not gay, say I'm not gay. Why do gay men hit on me if I'm not gay? And literally just grabbed me by my shirt and hung me out of a 3rd-story window. And is like, and finally someone convinced him to bring me in, but I'm seeing like the street lamps beneath me. I'm seeing the trees beneath me, and my life is literally flashing before my eyes. And that is why I knew that if I made it out of that situation alive, ain't no way you would catch me living my life for somebody else. Ain't no way you would catch me making a decision based on what somebody thought my life should be doing.
I love that so much. And I just thank you for sharing that story again, because I know that we have listeners who have not heard that story, and that will help so many. What is it about having sort of control taken away from you in a moment in time that has been so empowering to you? Because it's not that long ago, and for many, it's still a reality, that living as authentically and as fully as you are able to do is just a pipe dream. And you are so fierce, and you just seem to be winning at every single turn. Is it because you weren't winning for so long and you had a moment like that just sort of like shifted your perspective completely?
No, honestly, it's a lot more strategic than that, to be honest. And I'm a Buddhist. So before I was a Buddhist, I considered myself a Christian until I sort of was like ousted out of that space, sort of. But, that still didn't mean that I didn't have a spiritual space that I needed to tend to. And so for me, I developed something I call the SILK strategy, SILC, but it basically just stands for having a spiritual foundation, understanding intrinsic value, yours and other people's. Because it literally, if you can't understand that, you're really going to be dead in the water. You need to believe and understand your own value, and you absolutely have to be able to see it in other people. Then we talk about life condition, and that's something that I learned from Buddhism. But I know that there are a lot of people who are not going to sit down with me and chant and Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and
Hey,
read
Tina
Buddhism.
Turner, honey.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of people are not going to do that, and that's totally fine, because there are many Buddhists like myself who actually practice for you. And so what I'm really doing then is just breaking down the little pieces that you can understand about life condition and things that you can do to actually be aware of it and improve it. And then lastly is just the curriculum. It's just understanding that stop thinking that you need a degree. Again, because when I tell my story and folks hear my story, I worked for a nonprofit who undervalued me because I didn't have the clinical psychologist situation. I didn't have a bachelor's degree, but I knew what I was doing. And I had to sort of prove my value in a space where people didn't understand it. And the reason why I was able to is because I curated a curriculum that educated me. I'm educated outside of conventional methods. So if you understand that you can take education into your own hands, you don't have to have a woe is me story about I didn't have college or didn't have access to this, when there's YouTube and other situations that are low cost that you can leverage.
Angelica Ross, we really want to talk about Project Fierce. We also want to play your song. But when we come back, I really want to talk about the fact that you're also a businesswoman, founder of Trans Tech. You've spoken at many different places, including Lesbians Who Tech, where you talk about access to you, access to knowledge, what privilege is. I want to dive into that. I know we both do. We'll be back with Angelica Ross.
Welcome back to the Morning Beat. We're joined again by Angelica Ross, who has been chanting and praying for you, even if you don't even realize it, or if you don't even want her to. She's been doing it for you. That's the kind of person she is. And not only is she a good person, she is a fierce role model. And we're going to talk about Project Fierce in just a moment. But as Michaela mentioned before the break, you're also the CEO of Trans Tech Social Enterprises. You're paying it forward. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, Trans Tech again came out of a space where I recognized that the job market did not value trans people. Not only did they not value us, they were really trying to lock us out of everything. And so there was a time, even when I worked for a nonprofit, and I was developing a job program specifically to help address this issue. But it was run by people who weren't trans, who weren't from the margins or didn't understand those things. And so they weren't necessarily valuing what I was bringing to the table. So I quit because they told me that teaching computer skills was over the heads of the people we were serving. And I was so offended. So I created Trans Tech. And what I really set out to prove was that to my community, that we are so much more valuable than the scraps that we've been given. And so that $34,000 salary that they gave me at that job, I set out to quit and prove that I was worth 10 times that. And I did. And so it's one of these things of just, I created this space so that people could work on their own time at their own space on whatever their own skills were, not to fit in this box of food service or, you know, administration. But if you want to be a blogger or sound engineer or work in the film industry, that's possible if you learn the skills.
That's so interesting that you say that and you talk about space, because you spoke at a Lesbians Who Tech event in 2019. You really took the stage, but I have found, even just as a lesbian, there's still a lot of homophobia in regards to feminism, lesbian and trans women. And I want to know how you deal with that, the homophobia within even our own female community, and what message you have to maybe other women and lesbians listening to this conversation.
You know, I just want us all to recognize, if you, and I'm speaking specifically to the LGBTQIA and plus that we don't even know about yet, if you are a part of that acronym and a part of the community, then just recognize that there is work for you too. There is responsibility for you in moving us forward. Are you moving us forward, or are you holding us back with your homophobia or your outdated ideas of gender? You know, so really challenge yourself and challenge your friends, because that's where it really comes down to. Is people say all kind of things and want to post on Instagram and like they all woke and what have you, but how woke are you when you're around your friends, quote unquote? So it's really about doing that work and holding yourself responsible and holding other people responsible. And I'll even give it to you even more simple than that. My Buddhist friend Linda Johnson defined responsibility for me as the ability to respond. Responsibility. So literally, it's a deep one. That's one that will unfold for years for you after you hear that, trust me. So what I'm now working on is my ability to respond to situations and to people.
Well, the ability to respond, because you also said something a moment ago that really sort of hit for me. And I think that some of our listeners could relate to this. I spent many years of my life feeling sorry for myself because I'm a gay man and I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and that was difficult for me. And not to take that away, because that was difficult. But you were talking about those in the fold, or and there are multiple folds.
Baby,
and
that was an ingredient.
Yes.
That was an ingredient for your life. Just as my mother, you know, telling me to commit suicide, giving me the ultimatum and saying either you kill yourself or I'm gonna kill myself because I can't have a gay child. Boy, did she not even know what she was in store for, because it wasn't gay. It was a lot more than that. So like, you know, understanding that I could have processed that pain in so many ways where I'm inflicting it on other people. You understand? But instead, it's become an ingredient in my life so that I just have a certain context for when I'm talking to people who are in a place of hopelessness around their own family, and to understand how they can ignite healing. You can't force it, but you can ignite it by kind of just embodying it in yourself. You have to, everything you want done, and this again comes from the Buddhist practice of the mirror, because whatever's happening, people, situations, it's all a reflection to you. So if you want to change that reflection, you got to change you. So even I'm mad at my mom, or my boyfriend ain't this. And one key point, my boyfriend, my ex-fiance that I used to have, he would never make a decision. I was so mad because we were kind of stealth, and I was like, when are you going to tell these people? Or, you know, your family knows, but when are you going to be more strong in our relationship? Why won't you make a decision? What have you? Boom, big mirror just held up to me. Girl, why don't you make a decision? You an adult. I'm in control of my life.
Yeah.
It's really, once you get that perspective, everything changes. You no longer see anything as in your way but you. And you learn how to get out your own way.
We're with Angelica Ross, and we're going to talk about Project Fierce and also Play Fierce. But I want to hit one more point that I think is really important, especially in 2021, because you talked about privilege and you explained privilege is something that's not a problem to you. However, we all do have privilege in some sort of way, be it pretty privilege, be it any type of privilege. Can you go more in depth with that? Because I think it's an important conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, just so many people get so singular in their politics, in their experience of life, and forget that other people, like, okay, Black Lives Matter, right? The thing that we've struggled with within the Black Lives Matter movement is we still are under patriarchy. And so a lot of times when we say that, a lot of folks lend that more to Black men than they do to Black trans women or to Black folks with mental health issues that are being seen as threat by the police, or to folks who have incarceration histories or who have HIV or who are dealing with a disability. There is always a level of recognition that you can have and be grateful and thankful. I'm a Black trans woman, okay? So I have had an experience of like a lot of hardships and oppression, but I'm also pretty. I also have access to academics. I speak well. I also can see and hear. Those are abilities because there are trans people I know that have a disability, can't hear or see, and might be an immigrant from a country that this country doesn't see as like, somewhere where Melania came from, but they don't see it as a respectable place or whatnot. So we really have to think about privilege in ways of understanding that when you walk into a room, can you be someone who can recognize where space needs to be created? Hey, so that the people who can't hear don't have to speak up. Hey, do you have ASL interpreters, or is there going to be captions, or have we thought about this? So I'm working a lot on all that stuff. I'm not the best, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's nobody, and I don't think that anybody's ever expecting you to be an expert on it all, but show some effort.
Mm. That's so beautiful. Well, you're showing a lot of effort right now. We're going to talk about Project Fierce in just a moment. But before we do that, let's play Fierce. Would you mind introducing this song for us?
Yes. So get ready to shake your bang, because this is a song to celebrate everybody. Imagine Pose and you've been invited to the ball to be legendary, to be extraordinary. So whatever you got, face, body, give it to me and be fierce.
Welcome back to the Morning Beat. We're joined again by Angelica Ross, the fierce Angelica Ross. You just heard Fierce just a moment ago. We're going to be playing that a lot here on Channel Q, I'm sure. But Angelica, why don't you tell us a little bit about Project Fierce and what it means to you?
Project Fierce is long overdue. It's just this long overdue display of sisterhood across the spectrum. For a cis woman to come together with two trans women and, somebody like Ultra who has like been rocking the dance charts, and for me, to be honest, I'm somewhat like a little bit of a candy story that got to go on in the sense that
break my heart. I miss her.
Well, I grew up singing in church choirs. I grew up in every choir and in musical theater, and I even recorded a gospel album. But when I transitioned, I kind of lost the music a little bit, and I had to focus on surviving. I had to pick and choose. It just was really hard. And so when I met Anthony Preston at A2 Music, like, I tell him, I gave him a card, I was just like, I just cry thinking about it all the time, because I'm just like, thank you for bringing the music back to my life, because I've always held on to it and played piano and my guitar, but I haven't had the belief, I think, that I could have a mainstream go at it. And so when we did this song, because he showed me the song and he was like, I want to do my part. And as a Black, gay, cis man, I want to do my part. And I have this song in this project, and he, showed it to me, and I was like, okay, Anthony, but yes, I'll help you, promote or whatever, but I sing, baby. So you're gonna put me on that record. And so I
Yes.
ended up singing the hook, but not only that, he was like so like taken aback that now I'm literally recording a full project, like a full album. And it's been something that is a dream come true for me. So for me, I want to always be, again, this reflection. I want to show people, again, I'm a reflection, that what it looks like if you too are able to return to your dreams and not have to battle for your dignity or for all these other things. But we can't get there if that is the reality that most of us have to battle. So this song is to raise visibility for the trans community and the issues that are impacting us, and hoping that other people will speak up for us in the room so that we don't have to.
You talk about your acronym from Buddhism, now, no opportunity wasted. And I feel like it really resonates with Project Fierce, because had you not stepped up and said, I'm singing the chorus, that maybe that wouldn't have happened. If there are opportunities for the cis community and the LGBTQ community, when the opportunity comes, don't waste it. Don't allow that to happen. And that's sort of how the circle keeps going.
You so get it, Michaela. You are spot on. That is exactly what that is all about.
You're incredible. I mean, I could talk to you all day, but I mean, we've already taken so much of your time, and just thank you so much for creating space for us. Thank you for chanting for me and for Michaela and for all of our listeners when we didn't even know you were. We feel your love. I was a huge fan of yours before. I know Michaela feels the same, and I'm a way bigger fan of yours now. You're just incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And trust me, I've been a fan, Michaela. I've been a fan from, American Idol girl. I've been a fan from the back.
Don't do this.
I was the one calling and texting in for you. Yes.
Angelica, she's
when
never
I actually watched the show. Yes.
She's going to bring this up every single
day
for
my
the rest
resume.
of our lives now.
I'm putting it on my resume. You know what? Because you said that, there's one more thing, and I'm going to let it go, but I do want women to hear this because it really hit me so differently as I'm beginning my own fertility journey. You said something when in regards to cis women and trans women, and you said, there are cis women who also cannot have children. There are cis women who are not able to have a baby. Doesn't make them less women. Some of them have had cancer and unfortunately had their breast removed. Doesn't make them more or less of a woman. That's how we need to look at our trans sisters. And I felt like that was so important how you said that. It put so much into perspective. And I just wanted to say that while we had the opportunity, because I think that more people also need to think about that too.
Yeah, because I remember having these feelings when I would be traveling a lot, and I would be in the airport and you'd see the family unit, traveling with the babies and what have you. And there would be moments earlier in my life where, I would really feel this hit of being less than. It's for trans people, it's wrapped in dysphoria, but it just really gets you to this dark place with yourself of feeling invalid, feeling less than a woman. And when there were moments when, and it usually was when I was in the beauty salon, I remember in this Black beauty salon I was at, and I remember there was a woman over here getting like her chin waxed. And, there's a woman who has like, there was just this environment. And I just realized, I was like, I bet you I'm not alone in that feeling. I bet you that deep feeling that I feel of being less than a woman because I can't give birth to a child, like, that's not invalid, nor is that invalid coming from a cis woman who feels that. So it's like, why? When I'm dating these men, and, when it comes down to that, I've actually pushed them in that conversation. And many guys that I've talked to, actually, even if it didn't work between us, I feel like I'm almost even doing my part as well, in a sense of having them to look at women as less of objects. Does your vagina work or not? Like, can you do this? And more of like creating a family with her in whatever ways that means for you.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I look at you as my sister. I am so happy that we got this conversation. Project Fierce is fantastic. And you're doing a roundtable talk with Channel Q.
I sure am. I cannot wait for that. Like, we're taking over all week, Channel Q. I hope you don't get sick of me. I hope you don't.
Take it over. Take our jobs. Yeah. Take us. Take us up. Yes. We love you, Angelica. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell for all notifications from radio.com. While you're at it, why don't you check out some of our other great videos.